Hello, this is Naudi Aguilar at Functional Patterns, and for today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys some pendulum movements. Pendulum movements are maybe my favorite exercises to use to help disassociate tension in the upper body when we are trying to generate force in the lower body. Me being a male and having plenty of male clients, it's a very common trait to have lots of tension in the upper body from doing bicep curls, bench presses, and just in general, muscling most of our movements to our reality. Since we generally tend to be the stronger gender, we tend to cheat a lot with our upper body because we tend to have those genetic predispositions set into us. So anything that we can do to essentially undo that kind of tension, that unnecessary tension in the upper body when we're involving any kind of movement is going to be extremely beneficial. If you're somebody trying to jump higher, so much of jumping higher is about letting the upper body relax while the lower body does its work. If you're a puncher trying to throw a punch, it's essentially the same thing. Letting the upper body kind of be a sling as the lower body is the one generating the force. So through these movements, these pendulum exercises, what we're essentially going to do is create that tension in the glutes while associating relaxation in the upper body. So therefore at that point we can undo a lot of that deficiency in the upper body. So then from there we can move on and prevent any kinds of injuries in the upper body, but then maximize the potential of our core and everything in the lower body. If we look at the human species, when we compare us to the apes, to our primate cousins, we tend to notice that there's a lot of difference in regards to how much more we have our lower body developed than our upper body. Our legs tend to be much bigger than that of an apes or a chimpanzees, so therefore it tends to tell us, or it's kind of indicative that we're supposed to use our lower body more so than we are our upper body when it comes to movement. So through utilizing these pendulum movements, it's going to help us bring us back to our human primal functions, and we're going to help optimize that function of the human body. Let's get these bad boys started and show you what these exercises can do for you. To begin these two exercises, we're going to need a dumbbell. I'm going to be utilizing a 15. It's always recommended you start with something lighter, just simply so your body can coordinate the movements a little more. Adding load increases the stress level. You increase the stress level, it decreases the likelihood of you making adjustments through your movements. So start light, guys. Every time that you do these movements, start light. It doesn't seem like it could be much, but seriously, when you start swinging that dumbbell, it can start to move really fast and throw your center of gravity off. So always start light, and then also focus on your posture, like I always talk about. If you haven't done your myofascial release, if you haven't done your corrective exercises beforehand, right now would be a good time to start doing that. So to begin the movement, all we're really going to be focusing on is trying to develop some rhythmic swinging in the upper body. If you guys notice, as I'm moving back and forth through here, my upper body seems to be very relaxed, while my core is the only area that's really rigid in this circumstance. As I swing this way back and forth, you'll see that there's not much effort being administered with my upper body. That's really going to be the biggest battle when it comes to you guys doing any of these types of movements, is really learning to disassociate that tension into the upper body when you do this, because it's so common for us to become rigid because we're sitting at that office for so long, sitting and playing video games, driving in traffic, riding bikes. These regions tend to get very rigid. And so right now, by me just practicing this, I'm essentially just teaching my brain and my body to work a little bit differently and not make my upper body so rigid. So when I get the specific thing down, what I'm going to do is then drop myself into a squat. So the squat's just essentially going to look like this. It's going to look kind of like a baby version of a squat, simply because I'm altering the resistance by swinging the dumbbell downward. So this isn't going to be like your traditional squat where I'll be coming down all the way to 90 and then coming up, because I'm swinging. It's going to change the trajectory of the resistance. So I'm just going to compensate by hinging at the hips and moving back and forth. Once we get that sucker down, what we're then going to do is involve ourselves we're going to move into the transverse plane, and we're going to step to the right from here. I'm going to be swinging off my left arm. I'm going to pivot on each leg, and you guys will see that as I do these movements, I'm going to just follow the weight of the dumbbell. The dumbbell's kind of taking the brunt of the movement here. The dumbbell's the one kind of leading you, and you're the one that essentially has to adapt yourself as you're doing this exercise. So when I go through it, I'm just going to adapt to the weight. I rotate, and I switch. I'm going to swing overhead, catch it overhead, and then come back and forth. Once you get it down and you can move forward, you can then begin to move backwards. Well, rather than me going this way now, I'm going to actually rotate and go backwards. This tends to be a little more challenging on that nervous system, more challenging on your center of gravity. One thing to be very watchful of is as you pivot back and forth, these shoes tend to be really grippy. So sometimes what can happen is your foot can get stuck. You're gonna almost get yourself airborne for a split second, so you can get yourself through the movement a little bit easier. So if you need to, regress yourself to just going back and forth, understanding what it's like to move back and forth this way before incorporating it with a dumbbell swing. For the next movement, what we're gonna do is come all the way back down to this room. And we're gonna move in the sagittal plane once again. Like we were starting at the beginning, just going into your squat, we're just working in the sagittal plane. And essentially what we're gonna do is just follow that swing. And rather than moving laterally, like we did before, rotating in the transverse plane, we're just gonna jump forward. So I'm just gonna be going here, jumping, landing. You'll see I'm dropping my hips back as I land, spine staying neutral. One thing I want you guys to notice is how I'm being patient with the weight. I don't force the weight to go where I want it to. I rhythmically let my body follow the weight, and when the weight moves forward, I move forward. I don't try and muscle the weight forward or try and jump while I'm back here. It breaks rhythm and it's not going to work out well for you if you're trying to do an exercise like this. So make sure that when you're doing it, follow the weight. As you guys see now, I'm jumping backwards. Wait for the weight. Wait till it gets to the center line. So right here, I'm behind the center line. Once I get to here is about when I'm going to jump. Behind the center line, jump. Center line, jump. Let's give them a side view over here. Okay, going back to it. You guys will see here, I'm extending my T-spine, spine is neutral. Like we always cover with all our movements, guys. Focus on your posture, make sure that this is all intact to ensure that we're not having any structural deficiencies. I'm going here, jumping, waiting on that dumbbell. You guys will see, once I really get some kinetic energy on the sucker, I'll really be able to develop a lot of force. In terms of repetitions, I would say doing about 10 going forward, 10 going backward on the one with rotations, and then going 10 forward, 10 backward on that should be all that you should be able to do if you're having a little bit of a higher weight. And then at that point, your metabolic system should be completely tapped, and you'll probably need to take a break. If you go back and forth between those two for about 4 supersets, I guarantee you that by itself might be all the workout you need for the day, because it's extremely exhausting on the body when you sequence it correctly. Key point is, guys, we focus on form, on technique before we go about doing this. If you feel like your body's still rigid, it means you may still have to do some mild fascial release on your pecs, your lats, your subscapularis, pec minors, upper abdominals. Focus on breathing to open that posture up, to release that rigidness in the upper body. Once that rigidness is released, you will then know what it's like to have a truly functional body in your upper body, and what it's like to really, really have real strength and generate from what your real powerhouse is, which is your legs, your glutes, and your lats and your core. Really know how to connect all those things together. I do hope that you guys found this video to be informative. If you did, please like it or share it, comment. Any feedback is always welcome on my end. This is Naudi Aguilar reminding you to train intentionally and not habitually. I'll see you guys next time.